Okay, let's unpack this. We have a fascinating stack of sources in front of us today. Excerpts from this fantasy novel, The Gates of Winter. And wow, is it packed? Characters, conflicts, magic. It truly spans multiple worlds.
It really does. Think of it like digging through layers,
Yeah.
like archaeologists uncovering some hidden city. Every section we look at reveals something new, something that seems deeply connected to everything else.
Exactly. So our mission in this deep dive really is to be your guides through this incredibly rich, sometimes dense material. We're going to pull out the most important nuggets of knowledge, the insights for you, the listener, so you can quickly get, well, informed on the key players, the really high stakes, and honestly, some genuinely surprising twists hidden in these pages.
We're talking about some profoundly interwoven destinies here. You've got a hero just trying to survive on Earth, a queen in another realm bracing for war, spies digging up buried secrets.
And yes, the sources definitely indicate even the outright breaking and remaking of reality itself.
Ah.
So settle in, because exploring this material, it's going to be quite the ride.
So let's start where a good chunk of these sources seem to place us initially. Earth, specifically Denver, with a character they call the Rune Breaker. That's Travis Wilder. What do the sources tell us about him? Well, they establish pretty quickly that Travis has this unique connection to ancient runes. It's more than just casting spells. He uses the runes themselves. We see him using Lear for light, right? And Kron for warmth.
Okay.
And interestingly, when he needs to get past obstacles like guards, he uses Iroth and Dur.
And he's not just using runes, he's also hearing voices. Not just random noise, but specifically voices of past rune lords. The source is actually named Jack Greystone as one of them. It sort of suggests this power isn't something he just has, but maybe something he inherited or is connected to through history somehow.
That connection is absolutely key because his enemies are also tied into this whole runic power thing and its history. You've got Shamal the Necromancer, who needs Travis for a very specific purpose, to break the rune of Sky.
Right.
And then there's the Pale King, a figure who serves an even older, darker entity, the old god Mohg.
And Mohg's ambition is huge, cosmic scale. Return to Eldh, break the first rune, and destroy and then remake the entire world. Now, here's where it gets really interesting, and like you said, connects everything. The sources are pretty explicit about this.
Yeah.
The arrival of Mohg, the Pale King's forces, even an infant Grace Beckett on Earth, it wasn't random.
Okay.
It's traced back to a specific event. A rift opened when Travis's magical artifact, the Symphathizar, touched Jack Greystone's version of the stone here on Earth some time ago.
Wow. So Earth isn't just some separate backdrop. It's directly tangled up with Eldh because of this past interaction.
Yeah.
And we find Travis the Runebreaker smack in the middle of it, struggling.
He's really in a rough spot, according to these sources, facing cold, hunger, living rough on the street in Denver. But he does find some connection, some humanity, with friends like Jay and Marty, who are also struggling.
And he crosses paths with this Professor Sparkman, who is also a fascinating character. Sparkman believes in magic himself, hears voices too, and what's striking is he doesn't seem particularly surprised by Travis's abilities. Makes you wonder,
Yeah, are others on Earth aware of this stuff? And making Travis's life even more dangerous is the Duratek connection. The sources reveal this isn't just some regular powerful corporation. They're actually linked to the Pale King and Mohg's forces, and they're actively hunting Travis.
We even get confirmation from an Agent Hudson, a Duratek agent, that they are building a gate on Earth. The sources also drop these details, like Duratek sending weapons guns specifically to groups like the Sarathi through this gate.
Through the gate, okay.
Yeah. Plus, they're apparently behind mysterious disappearances in Denver. It started with homeless people, but later, others too. It paints a picture of a very dangerous, very well-connected organization.
But it's not all bleak for Travis on Earth. Unexpected allies from Eldh, like Beltan and Vani, have somehow also arrived and are looking for him.
And they team up with members of an Earth-based group called the Seekers. We specifically meet Deirdre Fallinghawk and her new partner, Anders. Deirdre's working on her own mystery, it seems, involving a keystone, a strange language.
And possibly a secret helper within the Seekers, referred to only as a philosopher. Very intriguing.
And Belton and Vani have these almost uncanny abilities. The sources mention them seeming to just appear where they're needed.
Yeah.
And they communicate with Deirdre using, well, a radio device.
A radio?
Oh,
that's quite the blend, isn't it? Ancient magic users from another world using Earth tech.
It really is. Another really interesting figure Travis runs into is Brother Sai, who runs the Hope mission. He's got help from some decidedly strange beings. The sources call the little people they mention a goat man and a tree lady working with him.
Okay, that's a gem.
Yeah. And here's a massive twist the sources drop. Brother Sai is actually an old god, one who helped trap Mohg centuries ago.
Whoa. Seriously, an old god running a soup kitchen.
Pretty much. And later, Sai seems to shift form or identity, appearing as Sage Carson, a charismatic preacher at this place called the Steel Cathedral. He uses his influence in what the sources imply are darker ways, specifically targeting people like Jay and Marty, calling them ones with hearts of iron.
So he goes from benevolent mission runner to potentially manipulative preacher. That's really unsettling.
All of this kind of culminates in Travis attempting to infiltrate a Duratek facility, again using those runes, Urath and Dur, to get past security systems. He gets crucial help from Jace Wyndham, a scientist. The sources note she also goes by Dr. Beckett and Dr. Larson.
Jace. Right. She
Yeah.
worked with Duratek, but quit after they started, operating outside the law and took her friend Maximilian. She gives Travis a critical silver disc and helps him get closer to the gate area.
But despite Jace's help, Travis is cornered by Duratek agents. And then, in a really dramatic, abrupt turn, he's pulled into a crack in the void near the gate. His time struggling on Earth seems violently cut short, for now at least.
Okay, so Travis is pulled into the void from Earth. Meanwhile, back in Eldh, war has just exploded, hasn't it? The sources highlight the attack on Castle Calaver, mentioning tower explosions. Gunpowder is the clear starting point.
Yeah, total war. King Boreas responds by calling his forces to muster, and Lady Grace Beckett, identified in these sources as Ulfr's heir and the bearer of that powerful sword, fellering, she joins the army marching north towards Gravenfist Keep.
Gravenfist Keep. The sources describe the army's journey as difficult, including passage through places like the Dundorder Run, which is called the In-Between Land. What kind of place is that, based on the text?
It's described as this strange liminal space, hard to traverse, It adds to the sense that they're moving through something unnatural, which kind of reflects the nature of the conflict itself. And their destination, Gravenfist, is equally unique. It's ancient, incredibly strong. A fortress said to have been built by both rune lords and witches, with enchantments literally woven into its stones.
Wow, rune lords and witches. That's powerful. And Grace learns it's her sacred duty, as Ulfr's heir, to awaken this embedded magic, specifically to defend against the coming enemy. We see this linked to a rune lord image from some disc or key she has, and a vision she gets while sitting in a forbidden chair in the keep.
Exactly. And the keep needs repairs, which brings in the rune speakers again. They're vital, helping rebuild using runes of stone and wood. It really underscores how essential both these ancient magic traditions are for Eldh's defense.
Now, swirling around Grace at Gravenfist are some really intriguing characters and subplots. Sir Dirge, a knight of Embar, is with Grace. He's consistently portrayed as a loyal companion, right?
Yeah, he is, but we learn some pretty unsettling details about Dirge, though. The sources mention he has this mysterious splinter working its way towards his heart, almost like a slow internal timer or affliction. And there's this cryptic prophecy from a forest queen who said she'd have time with him before the end. Heavy foreshadowing, given what happens.
And what happens during the siege is just shocking.
Yeah.
Another character, Aldith, suddenly, loudly accuses Dirge of being a servant of the Pale King, a traitor, right after Dirge attacks some others. The sources describe Grace desperately trying to save him, but he's already dead.
Yeah, and the cause of death is revealed to be that internal splinter, not the external fighting. It's a complex tragedy. You have Aldith's accusation clashing with the reality of the splinter and his condition.
Such conflicting accounts.
Exactly. And then there's that final heartbreaking detail the sources add. He had unrequited love for Orin. It just adds this layer of profound sadness to his end, regardless of whether you see him as a traitor or just a victim of this thing inside him.
Speaking of Erin, Baroness Erin is Grace's friend, but she's involved in her own deep intrigue. The sources tell us she's joined a shadow coven.
Right. And she communicates with Grace across distances using something called the weirding. What is the weirding exactly? The sources describe it as a kind of shimmering psychic plane. It allows communication and even travel between places. Sister Myrda is mentioned as being present during one of Erin's communications, which is a detail that becomes significant later.
Okay, the weirding. Got it. And there's this complex plot involving Prince Teravian, who turns out to be Queen Ivelane's son. It seems Teravian was actually working with King Boreas on a counterplot against the witches. pretending to be allied with them to learn their plans.
Which makes Erin's later appearance even more dramatic. She shows up leading part of the army to Gravenfist, hailed as Queen Erin the Fair. The sources describe her entrance, sword catching fire. She uses her abilities through the weirding to save fellow witches, Lirith and Sereth, from a magical flood happening there. And she shares this deep connection with Turavian, calling him Bashala, beloved. It really shows the dual nature of the witch power, deep intrigue, but also fierce loyalty and capability.
Throughout all this, the witches and runespeakers are absolutely vital to defending Gravenfist, aren't they? Healing, using wishlight against attacking ravens, helping with repairs.
Definitely. The siege itself begins as the Pale King's army arrives. The sources describe their immense siege engines, huge constructs of iron and magic. The defense is desperate, and there's mention of this terrifying possibility of enemy rune speakers using a rune of death from a distance.
A rune of death.
Yeah.
Chilling. And then the Pale King himself reaches the keep. In maybe the most shocking detail from this whole section, he is holding Travis.
Holding him? How?
Travis is somehow embedded in an iron necklace around the Pale King's neck. It's a deeply disturbing image and a huge puzzle piece connecting the Earth and Eldh stories right there.
Unbelievable. So Lady Grace confronts the Pale King. The sources really emphasize the incredible disparity. A skinny, mortal woman facing this figure of dread majesty, yet the sources state unequivocally that she defeats him.
How do they say?
Not really blow by blow. The only evidence mentioned is an empty antlered helmet found later. It's framed as a definitive outcome against absolutely impossible odds. A victory, clear cut.
Okay, right. Let's follow Travis now. After being pulled from Earth through the void, he finds himself in this desolate, broken place. He's with strange beings called the Mohg. What do the sources tell us about this place and these creatures?
The Mohg seem to be inhabitants of this desolate realm. One of them reveals cryptically this is the place where it was broken. Vague, but significant, And Travis encounters Lorad here.
Lorad gives him 3 magical items called Imsari and instructs him to go to the Dawning Stone, which the Mohg will help him find.
And the Dawning Stone, found in a cave, it's revealed to be none other than the first rune. The sources state it is Eldh itself, and Jack Greystone's voice echoes, confirming what Mohg wanted. The first rune is also the last rune. Breaking it means the world will end.
So Travis, armed with these items, finds himself at the literal heart of the world, facing Mohg's voice echoing all around him in this desolate place. And he uses the stones, crying out a rune.
Luth! And instead of the universe shattering in fire and fury, the sources describe silence, just silence. The world is gone, Eldh is no more. It's an unexpected, quiet apocalypse.
Travis is now utterly alone,
Yeah.
the last, or maybe the very first being. But the sources describe this moment not just as an ending, but also a beginning. He senses endless possibilities, like a billion doors opening up, and he has the power to choose what the new world will be.
He's given glimpses, potentials. The sources mention seeing one world without death, where the people are withered and suffering, just begging for release. A stark contrast to another potential world of simple, dancing people, filled with peace, joy, and beauty. It's a moment of incredible choice, incredible consequence.
And then, instructed by something, maybe Lorad's spirit, the sources hint Travis looks back, and he's pulled through one of those doors, returning him to Eldh, the Eldh that was just destroyed.
Yes, he reappears right there at Gravenfist, finding Grace, Erin, and the others, just after the Pale King's defeat. The sources describe the relief, the sheer inexpressible joy at this reunion. It seems whatever he did with the first rune allowed for a return, perhaps to a remade version of that moment or that place.
And Grisla the Hag is there, and she reveals her true identity. She's actually Vela, and she gives Travis the title, the World Maker. She confirms he broke the first rune, which Grace immediately connects back to the sky and Mohg's original plan.
Right, and remember Sister Mirda, who was there during Erin's weirding communication? The sources clarify that Mirda is Vela as well. It neatly ties together these seemingly disparate parts of the story, these different appearances.
Okay, wow. Lots of reveals there.
Then the sources paint this incredibly poignant scene. The little girl Tira, who had been transformed into a goddess, runs to Grace, hugs her, says, "I love you," and then simply vanishes. She leaves behind a red light that goes up and becomes a star.
Oh, man. Grace feels a fierce ache from this loss, but the sources add this significant detail. She feels it's a good pain, knowing her heart is still there, still connected to Tira.
And finally, Vela tells Grace that Travis is gone again, but with a promise he will return. The The sources state this is because prophecy demands the Runebreaker be present at the end.
Wow. What an absolute journey through these sources. We've truly taken a deep dive into an incredible narrative, haven't we? Uncovering these layers of epic conflict and intense personal struggles and these huge cosmic world-altering events.
We really went from Travis fighting for survival on the streets of Denver, dealing with cold, hunger, a corporate conspiracy linked to another world, all the way to a desperate siege on an ancient enchanted keep in Eldh, and finally to the literal breaking and remaking of a world at its very core.
The sources really show us the deep, often hidden connections between seemingly separate worlds and timelines, all apparently stemming from that single pivotal event years ago. They force us to look at loyalty, betrayal, sacrifice through characters like Deirdre, whose tragic end involved conflicting accounts and these hidden afflictions. It's complex stuff.
And they reveal that ancient prophecies and powerful magic aren't just, background dressing. They're deeply intertwined with personal choices, relationships, and the way unexpected allies can just appear at precisely the most critical moments.
Perhaps most profoundly, these sources present this cycle where destruction isn't merely a final stop. It can be the messy, uncertain, maybe terrifying, but also hopeful beginning of something entirely new.
Yeah, this deep dive really challenges you, the listener, to think about how even the most complex systems, whether they're different worlds, power structures like Duratek, or magical forces, have these hidden connections, these unexpected pressure points that can change absolutely everything.
It makes you really wonder about the true nature of power, doesn't it? Is it found in control, like Duratek or the Pale King desperately sought? Or is it in something else entirely, maybe in letting go, in accepting the void, embracing the possibilities of creation, like Travis seems to do? What kind of possibilities would you explore if you suddenly found yourself a world maker?
And finally, that lingering thought the sources leave us with. If the Runebreaker is prophesied to be present at the end, and Travis has just ended one world to begin another, well, does that mean the final end, the one the prophecy truly speaks of, is still yet to come? Or is the ending now simply woven into the very fabric of this new beginning? Something definitely worth mulling over until our next deep dive.